G'day guys, so I'm making this video depicting what the first DLC for Starfield is going to be. And I believe it to be the case, because I'm looking back on previous Bethesda games, right? Now Bethesda has an MO, it has an MO, where if you look back on their games, the ones you've played and enjoyed, they kind of feel the same to you. They're just in a different setting, with a different map. And they always come out with a story expansion, and an island expansion. Sometimes it's a bit different for a certain few games, so we're going to go back to Morrowind, right? Never played Morrowind, I don't know too much about it, but the main quest is you chase some dude called Dagoth and stop him from blowing up a mountain, I think. Kill him, stop this crazy shit from happening. And then your expansion DLC to the story of Morrowind was basically killing the Tribunal. And your DLC island map for Morrowind was a Nordic island called Solstheim. So, a new little map, around say 25% of the original map. And then we're going to bounce over to Fallout 3, which is the next game, which is kind of a little bit different, but also similar, same. So, for Fallout 3, its expansion, its main game expansion, was pretty much exactly that. It was expanding the main game, because in Fallout 3, without the DLC, once you finished the game, it was over and done with. You died. You pretty much died. You had to start again. It wasn't your typical Bethesda game where you could continue on after the main quest. And the DLC came out, it was called Broken Steel, which continued straight off from where you died. So instead of dying, you just got knocked the fuck out and woke back up in a bed 2 weeks later. And you were able to continue the main story and then properly finish it, putting the Enclave into the dirt. For its island DLC was a sort of southern sort of island called Point Lookout. It had another sort of little island DLC, but it wasn't exactly an island. It was a new land, but it was like a one-done sort of quest, you know, like one of this. I'm pretty sure I've experienced this before in many other DLCs, but this DLC will warn you if you go forward, you can't come back until it's done, and that was one of them. So it was called Anchorage, which pushed you into a simulator, which put you into like a sort of a real, like it felt really real simulator of the Anchorage War, you know, before the bombs fell. So it had sort of 1.5 DLC kind of maps, you know, it had a new map, but you could only visit it once. When the quest is done, you couldn't go back, and boom, same sort of thing. So what was up to Fallout 3? I'm pretty sure it was Skyrim? So Skyrim is the exact same thing, but we're going to go reverse a little bit with the DLC from Morrowind. You know, the main quest for Skyrim is killing Alduin, or putting his spirit back up into the gods or whatever. The main, the main story sort of expansion was Dawnguard. It expanded Skyrim's story. The DLC for the DLC island for Skyrim was pretty much the reverse of Morrowind's. You went back to Solstheim, but it was reversed ownership. Where in Morrowind you went to Solstheim, it was a Nordic island, but you played in Morrowind. This time you played in Skyrim, and in this day and age, Solstheim was now Dunmer Island. So you see this patterns going where there's somewhat sort of like story expansion to the main game. Either it continues the main story or it just expands more stories into the main game. And there's a DLC island. Now for Fallout 4, it was changed a little bit. A lot of they had no story expansion to the main game. They had 2 DLC islands. They had Nuka World and they had Far Harbor, which is pretty much like Point Lookout, another southern sort of hillbilly island. And I'm not going to count Fallout New Vegas. It wasn't made by Bethesda. It might follow a similar MO. I'm also not going to count Fallout Online or 76 because no one gives a fuck. So, looking back on all these Bethesda games and their stories, they've always had a main story expansion on their main map and a DLC island, right? So, Starfield's changing their MO. Bethesda is changing the MO of Starfield. No longer is it going to be one big map. You're going to have thousands of them. Well, 8,000 of them. So what can they do? How are they going to expand the main story of one game when it's not set on one planet? And then add a DLC island? Well, what I believe is they're going to do is they're going to expand the actual story of what you're going to be doing in Starfield. In Starfield, you're going to be finding these relics. And these relics are going to tell you, well, who built these relics? What they were, who made them. And I believe these relics are going to make a map. And once you find all the relics, you're going to get this map location And I don't believe we're going to be able to go there without the DLC. But I believe once we find, so that relic right there she's holding, we're going to find all of those. It's going to create a map, tell us kind of who made it, or what kind of thing made it. And then it's going to give us a map of unknown space. So I believe that DLC will send us to a smaller section of galaxy that's never been traversed by humans before. And it's, you know, it's pretty much uncharted territory. It's completely uncharted, but I believe this map holds the origins of these alien people that created this map. But this part of the galaxy is like messed up. Like, I imagine it's going to be like, I don't even think it'll be like 15 planets, mate. They might add 15 planets. But this part of the galaxy is so tremendously dangerous that the majority of the planets that were there have been destroyed by black holes or supernovas or sun flares. Some sort of, you know, shit. Maybe it was due to the wars of these ancient people and it just caused this part of the galaxy to go rampant. So I believe that the first DLC for Starfield will be continuing the story of Starfield by going into this location. When you find all the pieces of this map, will lead you into a new part of the galaxy that no humans ever explored before, but it's going to be tremendously dangerous. It's going to be like black hole, supernova, sort of crazy bad shit. There might be only 5 planets, but every other planet's being cracked open and destroyed. And it might be your mission to find out what actually happened to these people, because I believe Starfield is going to be, you know, your discovery is finding out who are these people. And I believe the DLC will be finding out what happened to these people. Will there still be some alive? Or will we go to their planet where they originated from and find it obliterated? Like Krypton, either it's blown into pieces or still there like Earth, but an ancient place that hasn't been touched. So that's what I believe is going to happen with Starfield's DLC. It will expand the story and let you travel into the unknown regions of space, finding out finding out where and what happened to these alien people that created this gate. So like I said, the main game will focus on finding out who made this gate, or this relic, and I think the DLC will be finding out what happened to these people that made this gate. So that's just me kind of pitching what Bethesda's done, because they're using a lot of the stuff from their previous games and they're blending it all together to make a better experience. I believe they're not throwing at their MO completely. This is just what I think they're going to do for their DLC. They're going to combine their sort of mentality of making new maps, but also expanding the main story into one. And that's how I believe they'll do it with the space game. They're going to release a new uncharted part of the galaxy, which is so hostile to anyone in space that it's just like it's really dangerous to traverse, and finding out what happened to these ancient people we've discovered by the end of the game. Anyway, if you agree, if you think, you know, if you think something similar or anything like that, let me know in the comments. It's always good to have a conversation about this stuff. If you want to stick around, you can subscribe if you want. I will generally do a lot more Starfield content when the game's actually out, and from here to there, if I've got ideas. I'm mainly a Skyrim player. I make stories and stuff, kind of like trying to make a novelization of Skyrim's story with multiple characters. I do sometimes mod tutorials and just random crap like that, but it's more orientated around Skyrim at the moment, but that can always change. So I'm gonna get out of your hair. If you're bored, shit luck. I'll be there sooner or later. And have a good one. Look after yourselves and stay safe.